Welcome back to William on Watch. There's been a lot of noise lately about Donald Trump's mental health, but for those who have been paying attention, this isn't exactly new. Back in 2017, 27 psychiatrists and other mental health professionals contributed to a book titled The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump, edited by Dr. Bandy X. Their warning? That Trump presented a clear and present danger to the country, psychologically speaking. Dr. Lee, formerly a Yale forensic psychiatrist, didn't diagnose Trump in the clinical sense, but she argued that based on Trump's public behavior, his signs of narcissistic personality disorder and sociopathic traits were unmistakable. In the summer of 2020, Dr. Lee published her book, Profile of a Nation, Trump's Mind, America's Soul, in which she correctly predicted that Trump would not admit to election loss and would instead declare the election to have been a fraud. In 2017, Dr. John Gortner, a former professor at Johns Hopkins, launched a petition on Change.org declaring Trump psychologically unfit for office. It was signed by tens of thousands of mental health professionals. A combination of two distinct psychiatric conditions, narcissistic personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder, often referred to informally as malignant narcissism, a condition far more toxic and dangerous than mere narcissistic personality disorder because it combines narcissism with paranoia, sociopathy, and sadism. As I read this partial list of symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder as provided by the Mayo Clinic, ask yourself, are the majority of these symptoms consistent with your observations of Donald Trump? Affected people will have an unreasonably high sense of self-importance and require constant, excessive admiration. Feel that they deserve privileges and special treatment. Expect to be recognized as superior even without achievements. Make achievements and talents seem bigger than they are. Be preoccupied with fantasies about success, power, brilliance, beauty, or the perfect mate. Believe they are superior to others and can only spend time with or be understood by equally special people. Be critical of and look down on people they feel are not important. Expect special favors and expect other people to do exactly what they want without questioning them. Take advantage of others to get what they want. Have an inability or unwillingness to recognize the needs and feelings of others. Be envious of others and believe others envy them. Behave in an arrogant way, brag a lot, and come across as conceited. Insist on having the best of everything, for instance, the best car or office. And people with narcissistic personality disorder have trouble handling anything they view as criticism. They can become impatient or angry when they don't receive special recognition or treatment, have major problems interacting with others, and easily feel slighted. React with rage or contempt and try to belittle other people to make themselves appear superior. In terms of antisocial personality disorder, the other component of malignant narcissism, the Mayo Clinic describes one with the condition as follows: has little, if any, concern for the needs and feelings of others, often lies, steals, uses false names, and cons others, has repeated run-ins with the law. Okay, let's stop there for a minute and take a quick look at those last 5 symptoms. I've observed that Trump's pathological lying has become far more frequent and delusional. He was charged with stealing classified documents after the end of his first term. He's still criminally charged in Georgia and has been convicted of 34 felony counts in New York. And as you'll see in a minute, he has used false names and he tries to con people. In the description below, there's a link to my episode in which Trump declares that it was the Capitol Police who attacked the January 6th insurrectionists, rather than the other way around. I concluded then that he was trying to rewrite history, but I now suspect that he has created that fantasy not just for others, but also for himself. Here's an excerpt from that video.
You are going to meet with first responders today, but you pardoned people who assaulted first responders.
No, I pardoned people that were assaulted themselves. They were assaulted by our government. I pardoned J6 people who were assaulted by our government.
In another of my earlier episodes, I examined his past use of fake names, and here's an excerpt from that one.
I called his office and asked to speak with Trump about the tabloid headlines that he had dumped Marla for Carla Bruni. And I got a call back from a spokesperson who claimed he was John Miller, and I said, "You sound just like Trump." It's remarkable that he was able to, hire a publicist that sounded just like him. And I immediately walked down the halls and I said, "This is Trump, this is Trump." And then we had to call and get 3 confirmations, and we called Cindy Adams from the New York Post, who said, "That's Trump, what's he doing?"
And let me put on the screen what People magazine then published at the time, quote, "The John Miller fiasco Trump called a joke gone awry." So explain to me why you think if he admitted it at the time, he's on the Today Show yesterday saying, "That wasn't me, it doesn't even sound like me."
Trump recently tried to con the world into believing that Abrego Garcia's hands were tattooed with the characters MS-13. Never mind that the image, which first appeared on Trump's own social media accounts, had obviously been photoshopped. Here's an excerpt from my episode covering that.
He said he wasn't a member of a gang. And then they looked, and on his knuckles, he had MS-13.
There's a dispute.
Well, wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattooed.
Oh, he had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
He did not have the letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
That was Photoshop.
He had MS-13 tattooed.
Right. We'll agree to disagree. I want to move on to something else.
Terry, do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the picture. We'll
and you think
agree
it was
to disagree.
Photoshop? Well,
Here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand. He had MS-13.
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them. I want to turn to Ukraine, sir.
Terry,
I want to get to Ukraine.
No. He had MS as clear as you can be, not interpreted. This is why people no longer believe the news, because
when
it's
he was
fake
photographed
news.
in El Salvador, they aren't there.
I also made an episode of Trump lying about trade talks with China, and in this clip, he claims he ended the recent conflict between India and Pakistan by offering trade deals. Take a look.
And, I'm very proud of the fact that with India and Pakistan, I was able to stop that. And those are nuclear powers. And that was getting close to being out of hand. And I spoke to some very talented people on both sides, very good people on both sides. And I said, we're dealing with you on trade, Pakistan and India right now. I said, we're not going to deal with you on trade if you're going to go shooting each other and whipping out nuclear weapons that maybe even affect us. Because, that nuclear dust blows across oceans very quickly. It affects us. And I said, if you're going to do that, we're not going to do any trade deals. And you know what? I got that war stopped.
So here's the problem. As reported by NBC News, India's foreign secretary said that Prime Minister Modi used his recent conversation with President Donald Trump to express his frustration with Trump's repeated claims that Trump played a significant role in brokering a ceasefire between the two countries. Modi clearly conveyed to Trump that the U.S. played no role in the mediation between India and Pakistan and denied any discussion of any trade deal. Before we continue, if you're getting value from this content, please like and subscribe, and please share a link to this video with friends and family. So the observations by Lee and Gortner include impulsivity, grandiosity, lack of empathy, paranoid thinking, and a frightening attraction to violence. But here's the problem. Those weren't static traits. Both Lee and Gortner warned that these kinds of personality disorders worsen with age, especially when reinforced by power and isolation from consequences. Fast forward to 2025, and both have spoken out again, this time with greater urgency. Dr. Lee, in recent interviews, has said that Trump's behavior since leaving and now returning to office suggests a sharp decline in cognitive control. She describes his recent rants and interviews and threats as not just alarming, but evidence of deterioration. According to her, Trump is now exhibiting delusional detachment from reality, a kind of break where fantasy is overtaking simple tactical lies. She warns that this isn't just narcissism anymore. It's a man losing his grip, surrounded by enablers and protected from accountability. In an interview with MindSite News, Dr. Lee says, quote, "Donald Trump is the most dangerous man in the world, and this is the most dangerous moment ever, not because he is the worst, but because we allowed his pathology to magnify over time. and because of the 5,000 thermonuclear weapons he has at his disposal. Given his instability and fragility, his decisions will be unpredictable, irrational, and changeable. Dr. John Gortner, meanwhile, suggests Trump exhibits traits of malignant narcissism, and that he's become more extreme, more impulsive, more paranoid, and more disconnected from reality. Gortner has emphasized that the stakes are even higher now because Trump is not just irrational, but increasingly erratic and vindictive. We've all observed his continuous pathological lies about the outcome of the 2020 election, his very disturbing obsession with denigrating Joe Biden at every possible opportunity, his bizarre insistence that Russia would never have attacked Ukraine had he been the president, and other irrational claims. It's almost as though he believes that whatever he declares to be fact somehow magically manifests into reality. And while the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders doesn't define revenge tour, professionals suggest that Trump's obsession with retribution, loyalty, and control has tipped fully into dangerous authoritarian psychology. Now, to be clear, neither Lee nor Gortner claim to personally examine Trump, but both have made the case that duty to warn, meaning a professional obligation to raise alarm when a person appears likely to cause harm, applies here. So when the pundits say it's just the same old Trump, the mental health community says no. He's gotten much worse, more unstable, more extreme, more vindictive, and according to Lee and Gortner, more dangerous than ever before. The disturbing truth is that we have a president who appears to suffer from multiple dangerous psychological conditions, but is surrounded by administration officials and Republican members of Congress who absolutely will protect their own lofty positions before protecting the nation and the world from Donald Trump through invocation of the 25th Amendment. So all I can say is, buckle up. Until next time, fair winds.